The rain had been falling for hours, not violently, not dramatically, but with the quiet persistence of something that refused to be ignored. It coated the city in a thin, reflective skin, turning every streetlight into a trembling echo of itself. Neon signs buzzed faintly in the distance, their colors bleeding into puddles like diluted memories. The streets were nearly empty, yet the city did not feel asleep. It felt alert, watchful, as if it sensed what was coming. He stood beneath the cracked overhang of a derelict building, his silhouette blending perfectly into the darkness behind him. Water dripped steadily from the edge of the roof, striking the ground inches from his boots. He did not move. Stillness was not inactivity, it was preparation. His eyes were fixed on the warehouse across the street, scanning windows, doors, shadows, and angles with the patience of someone who had learned that haste was the most expensive mistake. Age had slowed him, at least on the surface. The explosive speed of his youth had faded, replaced by something quieter and far more dangerous. Every movement he made now was deliberate, economical, stripped of anything unnecessary. His breathing was slow, controlled, perfectly synchronized with the rhythm of the rain. Each inhale grounded him in the present. Each exhale pushed old ghosts further back into the corners of his mind. The warehouse looked abandoned to anyone who did not know how to see. Rust streaked down its metal walls. Several windows were shattered, their edges jagged and uneven. But there were signs, subtle, careless signs. A flicker of light behind a dirty pane, the faint hum of a generator, voices, low and confident, drifting out when the wind shifted just right. Men who believed the night belonged to them. His right hand slid into the sleeve of his coat, fingers brushing the cool metal hidden there. The blade was short, plain, and worn smooth from years of use. No ornamentation, no symbolism. It was not meant to impress, only to end things. He had learned long ago that elegance in violence came not from beauty, but from clarity. A memory surfaced without warning. A training hall filled with morning light, wooden floors polished smooth by decades of repetition, the sharp crack of bare feet striking in unison. He had been young then, lean and fast, driven by a need to prove himself. Speed had been his strength, his pride. His instructor had watched him in silence before delivering a lesson that never faded. "Speed without control is noise," the old man had said, "and noise gets you killed." Tonight demanded silence. He crossed the street when the rain thickened, using its sound as cover. His boots barely disturbed the water, each step placed with care. He reached the warehouse door and paused, listening. Inside, a man was complaining loudly, his voice slurred with arrogance and alcohol. "Boss is paranoid. No one's coming out here." Another voice laughed. Glass clinked against metal. He opened the door just wide enough to slip through. The first man stood with his back turned, distracted by something glowing in his hands. The light from the phone softened his features, made him look almost harmless. He never had time to react. A hand clamped over his mouth, firm and unyielding. The blade flashed once, precise and final. The body sagged, its weight guided carefully to the floor. No thud, no sound. The air inside the warehouse was thick and stale, heavy with oil, damp concrete, and old machinery. Crates were stacked haphazardly, forming narrow corridors and blind corners. He moved through them like he had memorized the chaos, adjusting instinctively, adapting without conscious thought. A flashlight beam swept across the floor ahead. He pressed himself against a crate, becoming part of it. His breathing slowed further. The beam passed. Footsteps moved away. A muttered curse followed. He advanced again. The second man noticed movement at the edge of his vision and turned sharply. Fear registered instantly, raw and unfiltered. His gun came up, finger tightening. Too slow. The strike to his throat was sharp and controlled, cutting off air and sound. The gun fired once, the shot tearing uselessly into the ceiling as the man collapsed, choking, clawing at nothing.
He was unconscious before his knees hit the ground. This time, the noise carried. "What the hell was that?" someone shouted. The calm fractured instantly. Footsteps rushed toward the sound, heavy and uncoordinated. Panic replaced confidence. He stepped into the open, allowing himself to be seen. Rainwater dripped from his hair. His face was calm, almost expressionless. Recognition spread across one man's face like a slow sickness. "No," he whispered. "You're supposed to be." Gunfire exploded.
Bullets tore through wooden crates, splinters filling the air like shrapnel. He moved before the first casing hit the ground, rolling, sliding, disappearing and reappearing between fragments of shadow. The warehouse erupted into chaos, shouting, panicked orders, weapons firing blindly. He reached a stack of pallets and kicked it over. The crash drew fire, giving him the opening he needed. A metal hook lay discarded near a loading rig. He grabbed it and hurled it in one fluid motion. It struck a wrist with brutal accuracy. A scream cut through the noise. The gun fell, clattering uselessly across the floor. Another man charged him, swinging a crowbar with wild strength. The attack was fueled by fear, not skill. He stepped inside the arc, seized the arm, and redirected the momentum. The crowbar smashed into a crate instead. Bones snapped. The man collapsed, screaming. More footsteps. Too many. The warehouse was no longer an advantage. Smoke burst from a ruptured barrel, thick and acrid, swallowing visibility. He vanished into it, moving deeper, letting the men fire at shadows. Bullets echoed uselessly. He slipped through a side door and found the stairwell. The stairwell was narrow, concrete walls sweating with moisture, lit by a single emergency bulb that flickered as if uncertain of its duty. He ascended slowly, listening. Above him, voices overlapped in rising panic. They said he was retired. They said he was dead. He almost smiled, but the expression never reached his eyes. A door burst open at the second-floor landing. A man lunged out, gun raised. He kicked the door back into the man's face, felt cartilage collapse under his boot. An elbow followed, crushing into the chest. The gun fired once, the bullet tearing into the ceiling. He wrenched the weapon free and slammed the man's head against the wall until his body went limp. Pain flared in his shoulder. He registered it distantly, a grazing shot, nothing critical. Blood seeped warm beneath his sleeve, mixing with rainwater. Pain was information, nothing more. He acknowledged it and stored it away. Another memory forced its way in. A hospital room washed in sterile white, the low hum of machines, a doctor explaining limits with professional detachment. His body would not endure endless missions. Years of impact, strain, and injury had accumulated. He had been advised to stop. He had stopped. But stopping had never meant forgetting. A blade flashed toward his ribs. He twisted just enough, steel slicing fabric instead of flesh. His counter was immediate. Trap the wrist, torque it backward until the joint failed. The blade dropped. One clean strike ended the fight. The body fell, unmoving. The corridor fell silent, heavy with aftermath. Then came footsteps, slow, measured, deliberate. These were not the frantic steps of frightened men. These were the steps of someone who understood exactly what was happening.
The final opponent emerged from the shadows at the far end of the corridor. He was older than the others, his movements calm, economical. He held a short knife with professional familiarity. His eyes were steady, assessing, recognizing. They regarded each other without speaking, two men shaped by the same kind of violence. "So," the man said at last, his voice low and controlled, "the legend still bleeds." He glanced briefly at his wounded shoulder. "So do you." They moved at the same time. Steel met steel with a sharp, ringing clash that echoed down the corridor. Their movements were efficient, stripped of ego and flourish. Every strike was meant to end the fight. Every block came at the last possible moment. They crashed through a table, splinters flying. A knee drove into ribs, a blade grazed skin. Pain sharpened focus, narrowing the world to motion and intent. They circled, breath misting in the cold air, rain tapping against broken windows behind them. "This ends here," the man said. "It always does." The final exchange was too fast for hesitation. A feint, a step inside the guard, a decisive plunge. The blade found its mark. The other man froze, disbelief flickering across his face, then fell. Silence reclaimed the space. He stood alone among broken furniture and bodies, the echo of violence fading into memory. He cleaned his blade with practiced care and sheathed it. Completion brought no relief. It never did. Dawn crept in slowly, pale light slicing through clouds like a reluctant confession. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. He descended the fire escape, each step heavier than the last, not from injury, but from years. At the alley's end, he paused. For a moment, he allowed himself to feel the ache in his bones, the weight of everything he had carried. He was not invincible. He never had been. But he was precise. He pulled his coat tighter and disappeared into the waking city, becoming just another silhouette among thousands. The rain stopped. The shadow faded, but the edge remained.